When I moved to the countryside, no one warned me about the rules, which were more important than all the laws here. And when I noticed that after sunset everyone was hiding in their homes, I didn't pay attention to it. I thought it was just an oddity typical of small settlements. But every day, I began to notice more and more things that challenged my perception of reality. On the first evening, I saw residents who had been actively walking the streets before, going about their business, disappearing at dusk. It was as if they were being carried away by something invisible. I thought it was just the nightlife of the village. Everyone locks themselves in their houses to sleep. But then it became strange. Even the oldest, most tired of the inhabitants, who always sat on the benches until late in the evening, now disappeared as soon as the sun sank below the horizon. I decided to stay outside a little longer one night, without hiding. After all, what could it be about just taking a walk after dark? But as soon as I took a few steps, I felt that I shouldn't be here. This feeling was not immediately apparent. It came to me not through thoughts, but through sensations in my body, as if something was hanging in the air, like a paranormal threat. I felt that someone was watching me. At this time, I saw the first man who seemed to be walking towards me from the other side of the street. His figure was blurred in the dim light of the lanterns, and his movement was unhurried but sure. The man was dressed in old work clothes, his face hidden in dark shadows, but I could see that his lips were compressed into a thin line, and his gaze was empty. He didn't say a word when he came very close. Instead of the usual good evening or greeting, as would be customary in any other place, he walked past me without looking at me, as if I were not a person, but part of this empty night. And in that moment, I realized that I was not part of this village. I went back into the house, locked the doors and windows, but the feeling of anxiety did not leave. That night I could not sleep. Every creak, every rustle in the house seemed to me much louder than usual. From time to time I listened to the darkness, to sounds that were not just silence, but something remotely similar to footsteps, approaching the house but did not reach the threshold. It was not a real approach, but rather a feeling of something unattainable. The next morning, I decided to ask the locals why they didn't go out after dark. They smiled at me, but did not give me an answer. All I heard was laughter and inarticulate excuses. The more I insisted, the more obvious it became that they didn't want to talk about it. But everything changed when I accidentally bumped into one of the old men on the street. He looked scared, his face was red with stress, and when he saw me, he stopped abruptly, and his gaze became blank. He glanced around and whispered, "Have you seen them too?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what he was talking about. But then he added, as if explaining to himself, "After sunset, they come. They are not like us. They are coming, and you can't stop them." He quickly left, and I was left standing with this strange feeling. What did he want to tell me? Who are they? Why was it so important not to go outside after dark? With each new day, everything only got worse. The fear with which I woke up and went to bed now merged with the emptiness of this village. At one point, I realized that I needed to do something. I could no longer just sit and wait for me to be part of this village, part of its silent, hidden, and dark night reality. I decided to stay outside once more, but this time I was ready. I prepared a camera to record everything that was happening. I thought that if it was something supernatural, then I could prove that everything was not just in my head. And so, as the sun went away and the night shadows began to widen, I felt that strange heaviness in the air again. It seemed that the sky was darkening faster than usual. I walked down the street, and the farther I went from my house, the more it seemed to me that the street, empty. No, it was not empty. It had become hazy, as if reality itself was being stretched out, flowing out through the cracks in this village. Everything in my body was shrinking. I felt how difficult it was for me to breathe. I heard a rustle. It was not the sound of footsteps, but something much more disturbing, as if the very walls of the village had begun to move. Suddenly, in the darkness, I noticed figures, people coming out of their homes, but their movements were unnatural, too smooth. They did not walk. They seemed to slide on the ground. A cold wind hit me in the face and I froze. I took off my camera and began to film, unable to take my eyes off the figure that was approaching me. It was something that looked like a man, but no longer a man. It was completely silent, creating no sounds. I felt fear growing in my chest, breathing becoming harder and harder. But when it came closer, I realized that it's not just a person. It was someone who's always been here, not alive, not dead, just something watching from the shadows, waiting for us to become part of his night. With every new step, with every look, I understood. I should not have gone outside. I ran, without thinking where, just away. The streets of the village began to change, as if they knew that I had broken the rule. The houses seemed taller, their windows blackened like empty eye sockets, and behind the curtains, I could see something moving, slowly, like lazy hunger. I ran to my door, opened the lock with trembling hands, slammed it behind me, and pushed all the latches shut. There was complete silence for a few seconds, and then someone knocked. 3 blows, even, too measured to be an accident, and too human to be animals. I didn't come up. I didn't move. I just sat on the floor in the dark, holding my breath. The knock was repeated, but not on the door, through the window. I live on the 2nd floor. When morning came, there were no birds, no sounds at all. I looked outside. The village looked normal again. People went about their business, but now they did not look at me. Not one. It's like I've become something, a neighbor, but not one's own. Their faces are frozen. The faces of those who have lived with fear for too long. The faces of those who have long since given up. I began to look for answers. I went to the local library, old, dusty, as if no one had entered there for years. Untitled. The cover is black, dense, like a cloth soaked in moisture. Record. Fragments of diaries. We tried to leave the village. We thought it was just fear. But beyond the night, they come with us. In every shadow, in every crevice, in every dream. They don't kill. They remember. And they make you a shadow. Once is enough. One outing at night. Then you are with them. Already different. I closed the book and realized that I would not let go. The next nights were quieter. But silence was not salvation. It was like a lull inside a cage. You're alive because they decided so. But you're already part of their game. They don't break down doors. They're waiting for you to open it yourself. I began to notice that the shadows in the house live their own life. That things move. That someone's breath appears in the foggy glass. I recorded everything. The recorder worked all night. But in the morning there was only silence on the recording. Sometimes, rustle. Once, a voice. Very quiet. You're with us now. I listened to it hundreds of times. The voice was not threatening. It sounded almost sad. I decided to talk to the old man who had spoken to me for the first time. I found his house, dark, covered with crosses and amulets. He let me in silently. "You're out, aren't you?" I nodded. He was silent for a long time. He said that it used to be an ordinary village, until the light went out. So he said, "The light has fallen. It has not turned off. It has not disappeared. Fell, as if something was dropped from the sky. Since then, the darkness has changed. It has become inhabited, and they came with her, without a name, without a purpose, like a hunger that doesn't care who to eat. If you go out at night, they're already in you," he said. "You can live, you can hide, but one day you will begin to hear the call." "What call?" He looked at me for the first time. His eyes were as blank as those of a dead fish. That night, I could not sleep. I felt the walls breathe, like the floor creaking for no reason. I got up. I went to the mirror and saw, not his reflection. It blinked out of time. It stood differently. It smiled. I closed my eyes, and in the darkness I heard a voice. My voice, but not from the inside, but from the outside. He said, "Come out." Ever since my reflection first violated the laws of synchronicity, I began to notice traces within me. Something seemed to lurk between my thoughts. Someone else's shadow, someone else's logic. Sometimes I talked to myself, but I didn't remember it. Sometimes I woke up not in bed, but sitting in the corridor. Sometimes I found dirty prints of bare feet on the floor. The house was different. The boards creaked as if they were alive. The roof groaned in the windless night. And there were whispers, not outside, not in the head, somewhere in between. Every night a step closer. On the 6th night, I woke up feeling like someone was standing by my bed. I didn't open my eyes. I just lay there holding my breath and felt a presence. Warm breath over the face. It didn't move. It just was. When I decided to open my eyes, there was no one, but there was a dent on the pillow next to it. Fresh. Warm. I began to burn candles, to draw protective circles. Not because I believed, but because there was nothing else to do. Fear makes you superstitious. It makes you whisper prayers you never believed in. Cover your eyes with your hands like a child, thinking that if you don't see, they don't see you. But they see. The old man had disappeared. His house was empty. Inside it smelled of something rotten and wet. On the walls there were inscriptions, drawings, cycles, circles, repetitions. Everything was written in despair, as if he were trying to remember what else was real. There is a record on the floor, handwritten paper. First they look, then they enter. Then you wake up, and the world is different. The same, but with a crack. Everything real goes into this crack. Everything false remains. They don't take the body. They take the place. How about you? You stay in the mirror. Every day I felt that the village was getting smaller. Not geographically. It was as if the whole world was shrinking inside her. The news was gone. The internet was loading nothing but the old pages. The phone worked, but all the numbers were an endless dial tone. All that was left was this village, these houses, these people who now avoided my gaze. One day, I walked along the only road that led outside. It was a long walk, an hour, 2, 3. When I turned around, the village was still the same distance. When I went back, I was back in 5 minutes. They don't let me out. That night I heard a knock again, but not on the door. From all sides. Outside, inside, from the ceiling, from the floor, from behind the mirror. They surrounded the house, not with bodies, not with the sounds. Presence. It became dark, as if even the electricity had escaped from the air. The light of the lantern did not penetrate through the windows. It was simply absorbed. I lit a candle, and its flame trembled as if the air itself was sighing with fear. And then I realized that I was no longer alone in the house. I turned around and saw. No problem. But my whole body knew that someone was there. It's as if reality has become concave. It was as if the pressure had changed, and there was another presence in the room besides me. Not physical, but real. I sat down on the floor, pinched my ears, closed my eyes, and heard, "We don't want pain." The voice was neither male nor female, like a cold in the spine, like a thought that you didn't think, but you remember. On the morrow, I woke up in my house, as if nothing had happened, as if the whole nightmare was a dream, as if, but the mirror, my reflection stood as usual, but when I left his field of vision, it remained standing. I was awake. Ever since the reflection began to take on a life of its own, I did not allow myself to fall asleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I woke up a little different, as if they were taking a little, not the soul, not the body, but the meaning. Words were beginning to lose their meaning. The name in the passport looked foreign. The photo looked like it wasn't my face. I looked in the mirror longer and longer and began to believe him more than myself. I tried to talk to one of the locals, but now they didn't even answer. They passed by without blinking. Their faces are like masks, masks to which they grow. I began to notice their behavior. They never look into the eyes, never run, never whisper, because everything that breaks the silence calls them. And I was already calling the night I opened the door, when I stepped into the darkness. And now I knowed I was on trial. Not punishment, selection. One day I woke up and saw me standing at the window. I'm exactly me. The same clothes, the same posture, only the back. Breathing is quieter. He turned, and he smiled. This smile was not evil, liberated. I rushed at him, but he disappeared, dissolved like steam, and left a little bit of himself in me. I felt it. It's as if the thought you didn't formulate is already finished in your head, as if you no longer ask why, but only when. I started recording a video to see if I was still myself, but I wasn't on the recording. There was a man who looked like me saying things I didn't say. Darkness does not call. It waits until you get tired of fighting the light. In another video, I said, "You can't stay alive here, but you can stay inside." On the 8th night, there was another knock on the door, and I approached myself, without fear, with curiosity, as if to something familiar for a long time. I opened it. I was standing behind the door, but I was not the same. True, tired, dirty, with eyes that had too much memory in them. He didn't say anything. He just stepped inside, and I went out, and everything became right, because I understood I am not the one who came to the village. I am the one who stayed. Now I live here, in a house where the light is on until midnight. Then it's dark, silence, and only the feeling that I'm not alone. I'm no longer looking for a way out, because there's no way out, because the village is not a place. This is a state, the room inside you, when you walk through the empty streets of sleep, when you close your eyes and feel someone whispering in your voice, when you forget what you wanted to say. You are already closer. Feel. You know this feeling. You also heard footsteps behind your back in an empty apartment. You also closed your eyes so as not to see. I also believed that fear is just a feeling, and it was a call. If you're still watching this, if you listen to the end, turn around, because they are already nearby. And maybe, tonight, you'll open the door too.